what's up, you guys? My name is Cypress Noah, and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So in the last episode, we did a showcase on LEGO Showdown Bandits. So now for this episode, we're going back to an old topic that I've wanted to get back to for a while, and that is LEGO God of War. This time here we have old Kratos, aka Greek Kratos, and Kratos, the ghost of Sparta. So I've been wanting to get back to God of War for a while, and that was mainly because as after seeing some gameplay videos of like God of War 2 and God of War 3, I kind of wanted to do some of the iconic weapons from those games. But I didn't want to accidentally damage my main Kratos. To avoid confusion, we're going to call this one Greek Kratos, and the previous Kratos, we're going to call him Norse Kratos. That way, we don't get too confused. But I wanted to do the weapons from the games, but I didn't want to accidentally damage my current Kratos. So I decided that the best route to do that in order to build the weapons was to create a whole new Kratos. And I gotta say, this one came out pretty awesome. I still like my Norse Kratos, but this Kratos was definitely nice to build. So, as you guys know, we're gonna take this minifigure, do a review of it, explain my process, why we went this route, and then go from there. And while we're in the process, we will also be taking each of the weapons that I created, do a review on those, explain why I went this route, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get this showcase on the road. So before we go on to the weapons, we're going to take care of the minifigure itself first. Now this Kratos, was just as difficult as Norse Kratos. So when approaching this minifigure, one of the minor challenges that I went with was the head. I was originally going to do the same thing that I did for Norse Kratos on taking a regular minifigure head and then just painting it white and then adding in the red marks. But none of the minifigure heads that I had were, I felt that they wouldn't match up close to Kratos from the games. In fact, one of the heads that I was gonna give him was just like a straight up angry face of like showing in like the teeth, just sort of like that aggressive like look. But I thought that kind of looked ridiculous. So I decided to go ahead instead with like his regular scowl kind of face, like his normal stoic kind of face that you see in like the main menu and throughout pretty much the whole series. So I printed off so first before I printed this thing off, I went ahead and painted all of this white, then printed it off, and then like after gluing it onto the head and making sure it matches up with the rest of the paint, and I painted in the red marks, so it goes from like his face all the way to the back of his head, that it continues down to his back, and then it finishes up all the way to his shoulder. Up to the shoulder. Oh, there. It was pretty good on doing this one, because with the previous Kratos, I was able to do it, but with this one, I had like a lot more room to take care of that. Or that's it, because with this Kratos, he doesn't really have as much armor as the other Kratos. So it was a little bit easier to paint on the marks to get all that sorted out. And with the final result, it came out pretty good. So next up, he also has like some fabrics of the show of like sort of his waist clothing. Anything that goes down to his boots. You can see of where I painted in like some of the cloth that he has around his legs. I tried my best to do the detailing on the fabrics, but with two things. One, the painting on fabrics is difficult, and also there wasn't a whole lot of room for me to do, so it didn't come out fully as good as I was hoping it would get. You can also see if like there's some crimson that goes around the back. And the back, I almost screwed up. I almost messed up on the skirt on the back, because as I thought that the cloth from the front, it wraps all the way around, so there was also some of that detailing hanging out from the back. But it turns out that no, it's just plain red. So I went back and replaced the fabric and added in on some new detailing. For the waistline, I painted as bronze, because that's how it looked like in the games. It was a little bit harder on finding some simple photos on this Kratos. Well, clear images, enough to the point where I had to look at some fan art, because they captured in like those designs for Kratos and for Norse Kratos. So I followed up with those patterns, and this came out to as the final results. Some detailing on the boots. Hang on, let me reposition my lights for a second. Now he truly is the ghost of Sparta, because we can barely see anything. But you can see, like, where I did some detailing on the boots. And the boots, his boot, like, sandals. Like sandals. And there's also, this is supposed to represent Hermes' boots. His boots, like the speed boots. I was originally just going to leave those blank, but I decided that, like, since I've already given him a bunch of other weapons, I figured that I might as well just go ahead, add in the boots as sort of like an extra detail. To complete that off. And those came out pretty good. Those were pretty easy to do. And let's go on to the hard part about this minifigure. So you can see for where he also has, I forgot what this was called, but this is like this gold armor that he gets in God of War 2. That has the power, or that when it hits a projectile, it can absorb energy and sort of blast it back. I remember this has a name, but I forgot it. So I wanted to add that in because I thought that was like an iconic piece for Kratos, so I added that on. But the hardest thing was the chains. So, I still don't fully understand the mechanics of how the chain blades work. But when Kratos wields them, they're linked to a chain that's wrapped around his wrists, and that way when he attacks, the blades go out and sort of whip attacks. But when he puts them back, the chains are no longer connected. How that works, I have no idea. But this was the main reason of like why I wanted to create a new Kratos, because I wanted to add in that effect on having those chain blades, on him wielding the chains and putting on the blades and sort of throwing them around, and sort of to throw them around like he does in the games. But I didn't want to ruin Norse Kratos. I didn't want to cause any damage to the minifigure. So what I did instead was creating Greek Kratos, and the final result was pretty cool. So to do, wait. Oh, sorry, one of the chains was stuck. But to do this, I went to a craft store, and bought some like jewelry chains, like some very small chains. I then took one of the chains and then some wire cutters, and cut the chains off. I didn't fully wrap them around because I needed this thing still be able to move, but enough to where the chains could wrap around on the front of the arm to give that idea that the chains are fully wrapped around his wrists. I then super glued them on to make sure that they stayed in place. And I did about this 3 times. But the third time, I glued it on, but I left just long enough of a chain to put in this sand-off stud piece that, hang on, let me get one of the blades and get one of my blades. To give that idea that if Kratos wanted to, he could wield one of the blades of Chaos, or any of his other weapons, and I'll get to those in a second. But to have the blade here, then this small stud piece, and attach this underneath to give that idea on he can wield the blade, and if he wanted to do like the whip attack, just remove the blade. Remove the blade, the stud piece stays on, and that way he can truly do those same attacks like he does in the games. Games like throw the blades around, create meteor slams, and all of those awesome moves that he does in the games. This was a pain to do, but in the end, this came out awesome, and I am satisfied with the final results of how these true Kratos blades came out. So, I would have loved it if I had found a way to like attach the blades on and make it for where like when he sheeps them, the chains wouldn't be quite as long. But I don't think there's anything that can pull that off. But that's alright. It still gives off that idea that he can wield the blades and throw them around, create the slams and whole 9 yards. So I'm very satisfied with that. Now going on to the weapons. As you can see, we have the iconic Blades of Chaos. These are the same blades. Hang on, let me get the other one. These are the same blades that I used in the first God of War showcase. I tried to create like some new blades for Kratos. Like the Blades of Athena or the Blades of Exile. But I had forgotten that just creating the Blades of Chaos themselves was a huge pain. To do. I couldn't get like the size correct. Some of them came out either too small or too big. They wouldn't come out They wouldn't like cut out correctly. So finally, I decided, you know what? How about we just change the handles to the blades of chaos, to actually make them gold, make them gold sword handles instead. I did this so that way the paint doesn't like chip off like it does in the past, and then go from there. But that didn't stop me from creating some of the other weapons. So, to bring up with our next weapon would be the Claws of Hades. Hang on, put those on. Here we go. Okay, there's one claw. And hang on. That's two. This is awesome. So he's got the Claws of Hades. And a similar thing is that, okay, this one doesn't have enough room. But a similar thing is that when they're short enough, when they're all the way down, the stud piece would then come up, attached to the handle, and that way when he holds the blades, he can slam them down, throw them the whole 9 yards. These were a little bit harder to do. Actually, hang on. There we go. There's now enough room to do that. It was a little bit harder to do because for the handles on these weapons, I cut them off of some brick pieces that I'm not sure what they were, but they were like some special kind of stud pieces that had a handle on, and they were a bit too short. Like they just fit enough to where like the stud piece could connect, and also for where the blade, for like the weapon itself could connect on. So these were a little bit harder to do, but they still represent that basic idea on the Claws of Hades. He can summon his soul. He can summon the souls, throw them, slam them to the ground, and the whole 9 yards. And that came out final result. Whoa, whoopsies. Okay, so we'll put those aside. And next we'll bring up, since we're going on with the chains, the Nemesis Whip. I've never played God of War 3, but I think these ones are my favorites, because they're fast, as they pull off like cool spinning moves, and they're electricity based. So unlike the other weapons, Kratos reverse grips these weapons. So the same principle would apply with these chains, except we would go upwards. So we put the stud piece on here, he'd hold the chain, and he'd hold out the blades like this, throw them around, do the cool spinning moves, and whole 9 yards. And the reason why there are lightning bolts painted on here is because they represent of its elemental attack, its electricity-based attack. These were a little harder to do on chain blade wise, but in the end, with the final result, these came out pretty awesome. Whoop, whoopsies. Okay, I wanted to put that away, but not like that. It's okay though. It's okay. So we'll set those aside. And next up is, hang on. Here we go. Next up is the Nemean Cestus. Is that how I pronounce it? It's a very interesting name, so I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But the Nemean Cestus. So let's get both gauntlets out. Hopefully this will go alright, because one of the gauntlets has a problem. There we go. The Nemean Cestus are basically Hercules' giant lion gauntlets. These were a pain to build. Out of all of the weapons, these ones were the hardest to build. Because I took like a ladder piece and like put it down in the middle. I then sculpted out each of the gauntlets as best as I could. I had to look at a bunch of photos at every angle of the gauntlets, so I could get like the basic idea as to how to proceed with them, and then like attach them on in a way, and then like sculpt them out in a way that Kratos can wield them and then take them off whenever he needs to. These were a bit of a pain to build, especially the right one. The right one was having problems. But in the end, with the final results, they came out pretty good. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. One of the routes that I was originally going to do was to do sort of like, those brick gauntlets that they give to like certain minifigures? I was originally going to do one of those, but I could not find, but on websites like Amazon, eBay, or even Firestar Toys, I could not find like a couple of plain regular minifigure gauntlets. I couldn't even find a minifigure of the character from Ninjago that wields said gauntlets. So I had to make these from scratch, and they were a bit of a pain. Then afterwards, I took like a bronze. I did like my own base color, like a bronze, dark grayish kind of color, to like paint it up as sort of like the base of the fists. Of the fists. I also added in like some of the spikes that they have. A little bit. Hang on. Let me position my light. You can see like where I tried to do like some of those like lion faces, as well as like painting on the eyes, and a little extra detailing here and there. Nice part about this is that it doesn't really interfere with the chains. Like again, and there's just enough room for where they can fit on and onto the minifigure hands. It doesn't interfere with the chains or the paintwork so much. The only downside though, well, one of two downsides. Two downsides is that this one has a tendency of breaking. It hasn't done it yet, but it's very much on the verge of doing that, so I had to glue it to reinforce it. And also, the gauntlets are a little bit heavy for minifigures. When I tried, like with the test minifigure I had, when I tried positioning it, it would topple over, and I realized that like if I wanted to equip these kind of fists on, he would need like a base. Okay, so okay, this one's easy. The left one is easy. Okay, now righty, please work for me. Please work. Come on. We are in front of an audience here. Do not make this difficult. Come on. What the? I'll be right back. You guys still here? Oh, good. Good. Very sorry about that. That gauntlet is a diva. We're gonna call it the diva because it stole this hand. So I had to get some pliers and rip and get the hand out. So don't worry, we're back into the flow of things. And while I was doing that, I figured that I would equip on the Icarus wings. The wings of Icarus on here, which are basically just standard black wings with a special, with one of those special clear pieces on the back. If you're wondering why is there red painted on here, that's because this was originally the same like neck piece that I gave to Batman Beyond on like one of my first Batman Beyond minifigures, and it kind of just stuck around. It's not too big of a deal. The wings themselves, I think, came from like the classic Harry Potter sets, because I just found these wings like in my bin, and I thought like the shape and designs were kind of unique, and that I would match, and that they matched them up to the wings of Icarus that Kratos has in God of War 2 and God of War 3. So I decided to equip those on, and those actually look pretty cool. And I'm pretty satisfied with those. And now, with our final weapon, bringing on here, I had to forge it because I felt that it was, that the showcase would be appropriate for it, and that is the Blade of Olympus. It's the great and mighty sword. So, hang on, let's reposition our hand here for a second. Yeah, actually, let's go ahead. Harold, can we get a zoom out here? Thank you, Harold. Hey, Harold, so this is the Blade of Olympus. This was actually I wouldn't say easy, but this was actually a lot better to build than it was with the Nemean Cestus. So with the sword itself, it reminded me a lot of when I was making Devil's Sword Dante, but this one is actually a lot skinnier than that one. So I just flattened out. I just took some clay, flattened out like the blade of the sword. Like I first made the blade part of the sword. I then went back and I cut off some pieces of it to represent like the shape of the sword. I then added in a little bit of clay for the handle. I do admit that the handle could have come out pretty better, because I didn't realize it until after I had finished the sword and everything. But this head shape that I'm pretty sure is supposed to be Zeus's head, but this side is different from the other side. You guys can kind of tell that one's a bit lower than the other one, and I did not realize that until after I had finished making the sword. At that point in time, I was too far into the process to fix it up, so I just kept it as it was and focused on painting the rest of the blade. So I added on like a gold base color, which only took like one layer. I was really glad for that. I then did two different blues for this. So this one is a regular light blue that I put it in and then like in the middle of the sword, as well as on the top parts of the sides of the handles, is a robin's egg blue, and it's egg blue, and blue. I did that for sort of do like a difference of like energy wise, and this also represents of like the sword itself is actually supposed to have a hole here in the middle of the blade, but all this energy. But all the blue wrapping around it is representing the energy that the Blade of Olympus can hold. The Blade of Olympus has, like, when you use the blade in God of War 3. So I painted all of that on to represent that energy and the different blues, so that way it's not too much, and so that way, like, it's not too confusing. Then also, I went back and did some Sharpie detailing. I tried to apply on, like, this new clear coat spray paint that I had on here, like this, as well as the armor here, but in the end of it, it didn't come out correctly. In fact, this made the sword look worse, so I had to go back and fix the sword, fix the detailing and everything, and this came out as the final result, which I'm actually pretty satisfied with how this came out. My swords and my sword crafting skills are improving, so I really like it. So all in all, this was a pretty fun weapon to make, and I'm pretty satisfied with the final result. So let's go ahead and wrap the showcase up and begin talking a little bit more about the future coming to the channel. And that's it for this episode of LEGO Arts. I hope you guys enjoyed this showcase. This was a pretty fun solo minifigure showcase to do. In fact, I think this has to be one of my favorites, because of how I approached like with some of the weapons with Greek Kratos, and especially of how I did the chains and the chains. This was an awesome technique to try out. And depending on how Kratos' design will look in God of War 5, I think I'll try it again with him and maybe make some changes to it, so that way it doesn't interfere with, like, if he has like any armor on, or how he holds the axe, or any of the rest of the gear. So I'll see about doing that again when that game releases in the future. So when talking about some future stuff some future showcases in the future, I have a few minifigure showcases going. I'm currently working on. Again, I've also got a couple of stuff coming in the mail, so when that arrives, I'll be able to work on those. One of the showcases, I don't know if I'll be able to do a video on it, but I will be able to post some pictures on my Instagram and my DeviantArt pages. So if you guys want to check those pages out for like decals or some other art projects that I do, I'll include those in the link description below. I've also got a couple of new things coming in for gameplay recordings, though I don't know when those will arrive. But when they do, I'll be sure to post those up and start playing on for the future. Speaking of which, on Thursday, I plan to get back into gameplay recordings with Showdown Bandit, and after I play the game, depending on like what kind of characters will come across in that game, I'll begin working on a wave 2 of Showdown Bandit, Bandit in Lego format. So be sure to keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. And all in all, if you guys want to check out the showcase that I did of Norse Kratos as well as Atreus, you guys can check those out in my LEGO Arts playlist. And if you guys want to see my God of War Let's Play videos, you can check those out in my God of War playlist. So, if you guys want to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications. It really helps us. Welcome Let's Plays, LEGO projects, and really have some fun. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you think, share it with your friends, subscribe to YouTube, follow me on Twitch, and here's out over the road. Ow! Woo! Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time when the ice moon rises.